Hello and welcome to My Opinion Matters. My name is Andrew Zettel. Welcome to the show. Well, another controversy around free speech at Laurier. And guess what? It involves Lindsay Shepherd. We're going to talk about it today. Let's introduce our panel. Oliver is in first year political science. Nadine is in her master's of political science. And Marcus is in his fourth year chemistry. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Well, thanks for having me.
Here. Okay, let's get a quick rundown of what has happened here. Lindsay Shepherd, who of course was embroiled in the controversy around gender pronouns and the Jordan Peterson clip, had started the Laurier Society of Open Inquiry, and she decided to invite as the first speaker in the Unpopular Speaker series, Faith Goldy, who's a former reporter, journalist with Rebel Media, has allegedly some neo-Nazi sympathies, and the event essentially did not happen because protesters came and protested and eventually pulled the fire alarm on the event. So, first question. Do we think neo-Nazis or neo-Nazi sympathizers should be allowed to speak on campus? So real quick, we'll just do the table. Mark?
Simple answer, yes.
Yes?
No.
Yes.
Okay, good. We've got a little bit of disunity on the panel here. Marcus, walk us through. Why should somebody like Faith Goldy, who has appeared on a neo-Nazi podcast, who covered controversially the Charlottesville riots down in the States, why should she be allowed to speak at Laurier or any other campus?
Quite simply, everyone should be allowed to speak on campus. If there's a group of students that want to host them, they book out a room, they can come and speak, and no matter what they say, I think should generally be allowed in a university setting. It's a place where ideas can be challenged, and hopefully they have it like an open floor for questions and an open floor for students to engage with them and deconstruct them and really attack their views if they're not good, because I think we can do that as university students. We're intellectually mature, we can do this. And there's no reason to not let these people speak. When you don't let them speak on campus, you're basically, you're one, saying that these ideas shouldn't exist, and two, you're saying that maybe university students aren't smart enough, or maybe we just can't handle them. I think that's very infantilizing, and I think we're better than that.
Oliver, do you think that some topics are maybe a little too controversial or should be treated a little more sensitively, or do you think it's fair game?
No, I think that's the fundamental difference about being on a university campus. It's meant to address these controversial topics and have an open debate. The key word being open debate here. Yes, I believe the Laurier Students Association for Open Inquiry, they want to set it up as a debate at first, but they couldn't get another person to debate against Faith Goldy, so they set it up as more of a talk with a very long Q&A afterwards. So I do like the fact that they had the opportunity for students to challenge her ideas. And I do think controversial ideas or opinions should be challenged. I think everyone learns in that situation. Either you expand your horizons on the other person's reasoning, or if you still disagree with what the person says, then you can further research and broaden your scope of how to challenge that person's ideas. Therefore, you're still learning either way. And I think that the more controversial may not necessarily be the better, but it's always helpful to
push people a little bit
more. That is why we're all here in university, and we come here to challenge ourselves.
Nadine, is there a danger in giving a platform, a space to people with these kinds of controversial opinions?
Rather than it being a danger, I think for both of you, you're kind of overestimating a university campus and what it's capable of providing. So a lot of you or both of you are seeing it as it's a university campus is full about education, about having open debates, open discussions. It's educational. To a degree, yes on everything, but a university campus has policies. And so when we speak about neo-Nazi sympathizers, it's fine if she's, ultra-conservative or whatnot, but when we discuss that, society has taught us that being anything to do with Nazis is completely shut down, and it's not acceptable for a reason, right? So I think that for us to say that this is okay to have on a university campus, especially with the discussion that Faith Goldy was going to talk about, or the topic, is very concerning. And I understand what Oliver was saying, that, you know what, people can hear it and then they can go on their own time and research further. But once again, I feel that there's a lot of red flags that are kind of associated with that.
Yeah, she wanted to have a talk on immigration, on European ancestry. We can probably see how there's a bit of a fine line here, and it's one of those issues, whether we like it or not, that people get really fired up about when we talk about immigration and I guess the ethnic makeup of society. Marcus, is there an appropriate way to treat this type of subject in a university setting?
I mean, I think it's really important to realize that if we don't have it in the university setting, what's going to happen is it's going to go underground, and these feelings are going to be like, they're going to brew and stew underground, when we can't openly talk about them, where no one knows what's going on, and you only hear from one side because you just hear from maybe a friend, or they happen in your basement, and it's just two people, and you don't hear any outside perspectives. So these ideas brew further. They need to be exposed to everyone, and then someone who's not swayed yet, they can hear both sides and like, okay, well, there's clearly someone who's right here, and there's clearly someone who's wrong, and I'm very confident that the right ideas will emerge to the vast majority of people, and that's what makes me confident. I'm very worried if we shove these things underground, and then now you only hear one perspective, and you automatically assume that one's true, and that gets very dangerous.
Now, on Lindsay Shepherd herself, we're going to post in the description below the Maclean's article that she wrote about why she invited Faith. Do we think that since she's had a bit of notoriety, a bit of fame with her previous controversy around the Jordan Peterson clip, do we think maybe she's doing this to stir the pot a little bit, or do we think she's on the same side as Faith Goldy? Why do we think she's doing this, Oliver?
To an extent, I think, this whole free speech issue at Laurier, it's really become so overblown in the sense that it's I don't know, Lindsay Shepherd she's gained quite a lot of notoriety. She's gone to Harvard to do talks. She goes to the United States in schools there, and she gives talks on free speech. I think good for her. It's really good to fight for a cause that you believe in, and I don't necessarily think that Lindsay holds the same opinions as Faith Goldy. I think she varies on the spectrum from her quite a bit, from what I've heard about people close to her and everything. But I think it's really good of her to show that I have a different opinion than this person, but everyone has the right to their own opinion, but not everyone's opinion may be right. So it's exposing that to the public in order to actually get to the root of, is Faith Goldy correct? Which I think all of us here can agree on no. And her opinions may be a little bit extreme, but people need to see that. Otherwise, who else is watching The Rebel? The people that are that share the same opinions as her. And so if we don't address this, then we're just going to have people with their stronger opinions on this matter. They're going to become even more emboldened to share their opinions without any opposition from other people.
Nadine, what do you make of Lindsay's attempts at protecting free speech or fighting for free speech?
I mean, in the American and Canadian case, there's a difference for free speech. I think that one thing that's based on what both of you have said, that's coming across to me, is that we kind of have the same foundational idea, but our ideas of how society is and what we should be able to say just differs, right? And that's completely fine. I think that for Lindsay, right? We're talking about Lindsay here. For Lindsay, she wants to be able to mask this as free speech. You can say whatever you want, but in Canada we have a limit of that free speech, right? Which is fine, because it becomes a limit of, then it turns into hate speech to a certain degree. So her going to the States, I mean, hey, that's good for her. What happened to her in the fall, like in December, I think that her success over that, in terms of battling the administration when they tried to shut her down, was, I think, not necessarily a success for free speech, but to show that an academic institution should not be able to kind of censor you when you're having a discussion on a topic that is usually discussed anyway, right? This type of discussion isn't, or the type of topic that was going to be discussed, immigration, and I think it was about European ancestry. That's it's a bit iffy topic. Instantly, when you think of the title, you need to think about, all right, like in Canada, technically, we're all immigrants, right? So Faith Goldy, she, at least that's what I read, she's an immigrant of Ukrainian parents and some other type of ancestry from in Europe. And so when we talk about this, we just need to be able to kind of think about the whole picture and not just put in the snippets that support our argument.
Marcus?
I was going to ask you, like, do you think that, so you say you don't, or in Canada we don't have free speech because, or yours.
We have free speech.
We
it's
have
limited.
Free speech. It's limited.
But
Should
not
there
like
be
in
limits,
a,
though?
Pardon?
Should there be limits?
It's not, when I say limited, I know that kind of worked against me. It's a caveat, and that's fine, you know what I mean? Like, the English vocabulary can only fill up so much. But it's a way to protect us because, you know what, in the States, I mean, I don't want to bring this back to an American context. We're trying to stick within the university aspect. But in the States, there was a pastor that was burning, I'm going to use this example, but burning Qur'ans, right? That's, the religious holy book for Muslims. Then he tried to make his way to Canada, and then we prevented him from entering because that's a big deal, right? Like, I'm not super familiar with like free speech in Canada. Maybe I should have, read that more into before coming on.
But it's interesting that you bring that up about what the appropriate response of government is around some of these issues, and one of the classic examples I always hear is you don't have the right to go into a crowded theater and yell fire. Like I've heard that several times. That's because it's for people's safety and public safety. And that's sort of what happened here. That we had protesters came and pulled the fire alarm on, Do we think that was an appropriate response to curb the danger of hate speech here, Oliver?
I think pulling a fire alarm to stop an event it's a pretty immature act. If they really wanted to make a statement and actually show that their opinions offer more validity than hers, then they should have actually prepared an argument and gone to the talk, and they would have been given a chance to speak and kind of have a debate with Faith Goldy. I think that if you challenge her opinions directly, then that shows that we do actually have better arguments than you, instead of pulling the fire alarm like, oh, that's all we could do. It's not really the most mature thing.
But isn't it difficult when the speaker who's invited is a well-known personality, has the microphone? There is a bit of an imbalance there, isn't there?
Yeah, but I think she wants the fire alarm to be pulled. Like, of course she does, because then she didn't have to. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. She doesn't have to. She doesn't have to speak. She looks like, oh, I'm an oppressed victim. They don't want to hear my ideas, and they can't because they can't challenge them. Look how right I must be because they can't engage with me. Like, clearly, no one can talk at my level. She wants to be. She collects her speaking fee without speaking. Like, this is exactly what she wants, and she gains in popularity immensely. Like, she had a big follow, or like a year ago or so, where no one would listen to her because she went underground for a long time because. Like, oh, this is crazy person, and now no one can talk to her apparently because apparently she's so brilliant. All of a sudden, no, she wanted to be shut down. That's exactly what she wanted for her brand, to be shut down. And then now a lot of people want to invite her on campuses again, and they get shut down there, and that makes her even more exciting to hear. Right. And so we really fed into what exactly she wanted. It's exactly her agenda.
She did speak, by the way. She's was off campus. She spoke near the university. She did have a talk. So let's not act like she didn't talk. She spoke just off campus. What is fine.
Oh, of course. Well, okay. Well,
she can talk all she wants. Like, I got no problem against her. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, she talked, or what was the speech she gave or talk she gave?
About the topic that she had.
Yeah, she gave a brief statement before leaving, and then as Lindsay puts it in the Maclean's article, they said we'll call it a night. So,
they didn't ask questions to her.
That's right. There wasn't the Q&A period that they had originally planned. Yeah. So.
That's their problem.
Perhaps from that perspective, it actually worked against them. What do we think of the state of free speech on our campus? I mean, we're hearing lots of controversies always at Laurier as Waterloo students. Do we feel free to speak on issues, Nadine?
I think that A really interesting question. Back in 2008, we had a professor come to campus. The Israeli-Palestinian issue is very contested, and that's fine. There's a way to talk about it in a very rational, political way without putting your personal feelings into it. I can say that because I'm Palestinian. But I've also been to Israel with the University of Waterloo, right? So, like, I've been to Tel Aviv, I've been to Haifa, I've been to Jerusalem, so I can say this from a both side perspective. And a professor came in 2008, and he was Jewish himself, and he was saying that what's happening to Palestinians is an issue. So he was trying to, criticize the Jewish state. A lot of Jewish students, Israeli students, were very upset, and so that video went viral a couple of years ago, but that's still being brought up. So what happens on campus today is that we have, students for Palestinian rights groups, they have their events, and then we also have people that are from the other side that are like super into this should not be happening, this should not be a discussion, that try and shut it down. So we've had those errors on campus, but we still allow people to have that discussion, right? In a student, effective, safe space, right? It's not saying that, this shouldn't exist or this shouldn't exist or this is a problem. It's saying that I'm going to, not argue for my side, but I want you to recognize the suffering or the different lens from my side versus the other side, right?
I mean, or was it in 2016 we had a BDS vote at Waterloo, and
yeah, that's true. I forgot,
students we openly engaged with it. I don't know how many, 4,000 or 5,000 people voted probably.
4,000.
4,000 people voted, and
got shut down.
It didn't get shut down. Like students voted against it.
Yeah.
That's we openly discussed, and there was a heated I'm sure there was a debate, and people campaigned and voted, and this was the result. And I'm sure it can happen again. I don't know or probably 3 years it can happen again or something like that. And that's good. I think that it's terrible that the speaker got shut down, or got disinvited or not allowed to come. That's wrong, and universities need to make an effort that should not happen. And I would even go further and say we should make sure we should really be encouraging students that if they don't want to go, they don't have to go. Number one. Number two, if they want to go, they can go and they can ask questions at the end. It'd be good if clubs or whoever hosts the speaker, they don't have to do this, but they could purposely give the mic to someone who disagrees first to ask a question as opposed to no. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm thinking. Go ahead, continue.
Oh, I was going to say.
I'm not interrupting you. I'm a nice person. Continue.
You're very nice, by the way. Okay. No, and it'd be nice if clubs goes to the speaker gets challenged, because first of all, it's much more exciting to hear a question from someone who disagrees. You don't need to just hear your horn tooted for you.
Yeah.
Do you think there are topics, Oliver, that can't be discussed at University of Waterloo, or is it fairly free?
I don't know. Well, I'm only a first year, so I haven't really had a huge experience with the university yet. But I can tell you that from my classes, I've disagreed with professors on quite a few things. But the good thing about it is that they're willing to listen to what I have to say, and that way the class can hear both sides of an argument. And I think everyone learns from that way. I went to an event where we had a guest speaker come and talk about Canada-Israeli relations, and we had protesters show up, and they tried to shut us down, and we had to ask them to leave. We invited them to stay at the event and just hold their questions until the end. But when you start intentionally disrupting someone and so that they cannot speak, it only makes you look bad if you don't allow both sides of a debate to prevail. But right now, I think it's generally okay here at
Let's
Waterloo.
get Nadine on that.
I think there's a difference between so what happened at Laurier when the students put the fire alarm, that's completely wrong. You shouldn't have done that. Look, you don't agree, you can go there, make your opinion known. If posters go up, Lindsay Shepherd was saying that people were tearing them down. You shouldn't be doing that. If you don't agree, you should go and say that, this is wrong. But what they were arguing against, that it was fundamentally wrong for Faith Goldy. If she came without her whole neo-Nazi aspect, it would be fine. This wouldn't be that huge of a discussion. People would have went, I would have went, do you know what I mean? And engaged her on this discussion, knowing that if she's an intellectual individual that will allow me to say my piece without interrupting me and saying, no, you're wrong, then yeah, we would have had that discussion. But in terms of protesters, students, as we are, we're also kind of activists in a way, right? We try to change things on campus. And so when it came to the tuition, we, or it usually happens yearly, we protest about tuition increases, right? We protest about mental health services on campus. So we protest against what we feel is right or wrong for us. And so for us to say, well, those people are wrong, if we don't have protesters, then we're just going to be little robots that just agree with administrations, and that's not really what our society is.
No, they get to protest, and that's the other half of free
They're activists.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the other half of free speech that's often forgotten. That
Yeah.
you know, she gets to come on campus, and like also like as many students as want to, like thousands, if not all of them, can hold up signs and say we do not we do not support this, we do not like this. But that doesn't mean you get to block her from speaking and pull the fire alarm, right? The other half of free speech that's often forgotten is my right to dissent and disagree and say that you're wrong and explain to people why, and then people can listen to that and realize that I'm right, type of things.
Are there things the university needs to do? How do they navigate when they've got these very contentious things and they've got a loud group on one side, a very loud group on the other? How does an administrator or a professor, how do they walk that line?
Set the ground clear that like it should all be words and no physical altercations and no any other form of intimidation, or any other form of intimidation that would prevent the other person from speaking, type of thing. And like just set that as the stage and like have very harsh consequences for anyone that breaks those rules, that you don't prevent people. If you pull the fire alarm, like there should be very harsh consequences for that. If you block the speaker or block students from getting into the auditorium, harsh consequences for that. Any threats, harsh consequences for that. And like if you set that ground clear, then people will start to see that the administration favors people being able to speak, and that they're trying to make sure that it happens and in a way that no one gets physically hurt.
There are consequences for that, though. You pull a fire alarm, that's straight up illegal. You're going to get fined for that, right? That's an issue. You're going to block someone. That's why you have campus police. You know that if you're bringing someone controversial, you should be bringing security involved in that. That's just common sense. That's what we've learned in the past. It's not a 2018 phenomenon, you know? Like, I'm not arguing against you. Do you know what I mean? But I'm just wanted to let you know that there, and if you write threats online, like, oh, I'm not going to say them because I don't want this to haunt me. But, if you are going to say very, threatening things, physical or whatnot, that's an issue. Police will look into you. Like, that's a red thing on your record. Do you know what I mean? So those consequences exist. Society, guys, it's not that peachy.
Do we think this is the last we're going to hear of Lindsay Shepherd? Do we think that she's... Where do we think it goes from here? She's got this this controversial, unpopular speaker series. Where does it go from here? Does she bring in another speaker? Will they ever get to speak?
You haven't spoken in a while. Go ahead, Oliver.
I think what Lindsay's trying to do is she's trying to push the boundaries here a little bit, and the boundaries are very close at Laurier for who's allowed to speak and who's not. So, if Faith Goldy is, if all it takes is Faith Goldy to have protests and pull the fire alarm, why not? Let's see how much further we can get to, have someone speak here. So I don't think this is the end of it. I think we might see someone, I don't want to say worse, because, they have the right to their own opinion, but we might see someone a little bit more controversial, in the sense that, you just want to push the boundaries, and, it helps her every time. Like, every time she gets shut down, boom, that's free speech getting shut down. That's Laurier not being open to new opinions or different opinions and freedom of thought and all that kind of stuff. So I don't see it ending anytime soon.
Final thoughts, guys?
You go first.
I was going to say, I definitely think that Lindsay has a massive Twitter following and a huge group of fans that will follow her no matter what, because of the incident that happened a year ago. And so I guess she could take it wherever she wants, but I really hope she takes it in the direction of, if she wants to continue hosting unpopular speakers, host unpopular speakers with different opinions, not all the same one, not all the same unpopular opinion, right? And that's what one thing I often worry about is that free speech advocates, they're not actually concerned about free speech, they're concerned about free speech for their side. And so I want to make sure, if she's really sincere about it, when I really hope she is, I hope she, puts this on both sides and host someone maybe from the very far left who has something to say, and tell, maybe her right-wing followers, come listen, come ask questions, but don't interrupt it, don't pull a fire alarm, and don't,
To hear some of the
Yeah.
radical environmentalists or communists or
whatever.
All agree.
That'd be good. Get them all together.
I think that for Lindsay, she needs to kind of bring it back to the Canadian perspective. She's pushing boundaries. I kind of feel in a way she's trying to be revolutionary in her thought. Like, let's talk about this whole immigration thing. But then she also needs to think about that the people in the room, one thing that a professor said in the Record article was that the reason why he was so against it is because students of color, students of, a background that Lindsay might not necessarily, she brought a speaker for, do you know what I mean? I'm not talking about her personally. They need to understand that will make them feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So as a child of immigrants, if I was in that room, I'm born and raised in Canada. I already have a social insurance number. You can come at me. I'm not going anywhere, right? Where am I going to go? Realistically, right, Faith? But I think that Lindsay kind of needs to not stop, but she can move forward with her ideas in a popular speaker series, but kind of maybe not try to take such a revolutionary approach and try to shift our politics and our ideas completely. Do some more research into Canadian free speech, what the policies on Laurier are, right? On the policies that Laurier has for speakers, the policies that it has for freedom of speech and equality on campus, and maybe kind of move forward from there.
Excellent. Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much to everyone. What a rousing debate. And we will watch Lindsay Shepherd very closely to see what the next unpopular speaker is. If you have any opinions on this, comment in the YouTube link or also on our Facebook page. You can also get in touch with us by emailing us, myopinionmattersuw@gmail.com, if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, or if you want to be a panelist on the show. From all of us here at My Opinion Matters, remember that your opinion matters.
Your opinion matters.
And have a great week.